morning, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all today? Excellent. Well, I am coming to you today from Mesa, Arizona, and today what I want to do is I want to go check out the filming location for one of my favorite movies, Used Cars, starring Kurt Russell. Now, this should have been a huge success. I mean, it's got great casting, great characters. Robert Zemeckis' first movie that ever had an R rating. Bob Gale was working on this picture from Back to the Future. I mean, this had everything that should have made it a hit, including being the highest rated Columbia Pictures movie to ever have a screening in any genre or anything that's ever come out in Columbia. This did the best. However, it didn't do so well because they decided to switch the release date, release at the same time as Airplane the same week, and unfortunately, because Airplane was more family friendly and got such great reviews, this movie kind of disappeared. It was kind of a flop. And it wasn't until video rentals and all that stuff came out that it got a new life and got a cult fan base, which is how I found out about it. I love this movie. I hope you do too. Let's go check out some of the filming locations from Used Cars. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. All right, my friends, this apartment building that you're looking at and this building over here to the side, this was all a vacant lot when they filmed the movie, but this was New Deal Used Cars. This is where Kurt Russell worked. And I don't know about you, but anything Kurt Russell's in, I'm usually willing to give it a chance, but this is just top notch. He's a used car salesman. He's like the top salesman at this dealership that only has, you know, like 2 or 3 salesmen. And he's a pretty dishonest car salesman who has decided at the beginning of the movie, when it starts, we find out that he wants to run for state senate. And they actually said, you know, they show his campaign slogan thing in the movie a couple of times where it says, "Trust me." And they actually said they thought that the movie would probably have done a little bit better had they went with that as a title instead of Used Cars. They thought that the title Used Cars just kind of maybe turned people off. But since this was a vacant lot, I'll kind of show you how it was all laid out, because the one thing that you can tell from this movie is that that motel sign right there, that motel was still here at the time. That's the only building that you can see off to the side. So right over here where this is where they would have had that giant garage where Jim worked, the mechanic, who was just hilarious. Every scene with Jim is a gold mine. And like every time you see him fixing a car, he's asleep with like a welder in his hand. But they said they actually based that off of a real guy. Zemeckis and Bob Gale said that they ran into, when they were like taking a trip across the Southwest, they ran into a mechanic who was just like that guy. So the garage, the big 3-door garage, would have been over here, and then there would have been like a gap in there, and behind there was where the pit is that they eventually bury Luke, the owner of this car lot. You see, basically the story is for this movie is that there is an old car lot here. It's an old used car lot of kind of like junky cars, and that's called New Deal Used Cars. That's run by a man named Luke Fuke, and Luke Fuke's brother is Roy L. Fuchs, of the owner of Roy L. Fuchs Auto Emporium, which was directly across the street. That was Roy L. Fuchs in the movie. Now in the movie, we find out that Roy complains early on that he's been greasing the palms of the local mayor to make sure that when the freeway off-ramp comes in, that it doesn't go through his property and that it goes through his brother's property instead over here at New Deal. Well, because they let you know that the people in town are getting suspicious, they end up running it right through Roy's lot. And so Roy, across the street, kind of the evil brother, played by Jack Warden. Jack Warden actually plays both brothers, Roy and Luke. He devises a plan to get his brother's car lot, because they say whoever has this lot will have the biggest lot in all of Arizona. So what he ends up doing is he knows his brother, like his twin brother, has a heart condition, so he sends over a mechanic that works for him that used to be a demolition derby guy named Mickey. And Mickey ends up coming out here and taking a test drive in a 57 Chevy that Luke calls one of his pride cars. So they end up taking off on that ride, and Mickey takes him up and down this street racing and jumping the At the time, there was a median here. Now you can tell they have a train that runs through the center. But he drives him up and down through this street, crashing into everything, flipping the car when it comes back in, and it causes Luke to have a heart attack. So the guys decide what they're gonna do. The guys that work here, Kurt Russell and Garrett Graham, they decide that they're gonna pretend that Luke didn't die because they'll lose the car lot. Roy will get the car lot because Luke has an estranged daughter that nobody's heard from. Well, the moment that the guy from the Demolition Derby comes to take that test drive, Luke is coming out of his trailer, which is actually would have been right behind here. Right here would have been where the New Deal used cars office was, and then behind it, when you walked through it, there was a room in the back, and that's where Luke lived. They decide to bury him in that pit that was right up here, the car pit where you could get in there and work underneath a car. They decide to bury him in there so nobody will know that he's passed away until they can figure out what to do. Then his daughter comes into town and she's looking for her dad because she's just talked to him and he's not here. They tell her that he's been off to Miami. But they have this plan to get people to come to the car lot because Rudy Russo is Kurt Russell's character, and he's trying to raise $60,000 so he can buy his nomination to the state senate. And so he meets Lenny and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. David Landers and Michael McKean are both in this movie, and they're two like electronics wizards that tell the guys at the car lot here that they can jam any TV broadcast. So the first one they jam is the football game, and they have like a stripper type lady sitting on top of a car, and then everything goes awry and they accidentally rip her dress off. It gets stuck on the hood. So they get investigated for that first because they've interrupted a national broadcast, but then they decide they're gonna interrupt the State of the Union address, and they do that again. Now what's funny is there's a little back hidden story to both of these events. One of the stories is that when you see the first time when they interrupt the football game, they have these goofy costumes that they put on, like these goofy masks. They're the slinky eye thing. Garrett Graham says in the movie, like, he doesn't want to wear it, he thinks it's stupid, but originally they had, I kid you not, they were gonna go with glasses that had a penis nose, and you can actually see those off to the side right before they go live, interrupting the broadcast. You can see those off to the side. They were gonna use those. They thought that would be a funnier gag, but apparently Steven Spielberg was the executive producer of this, and he didn't like the idea. He thought it might be a little too racy for the movie, so they ended up going with the slinky eyes. But also during this scene, well, throughout the movie, they make constant comments about kind of not liking Jimmy Carter. They make reference to, like, you know, like saying like that we're trying to run an honest lot here. You think we want to be affiliated with the President of the United States? One of the problems with that was that Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis both politically leaned towards more of the conservative side, so they didn't like Jimmy Carter. However, Steven Spielberg was the producer, and he was a big fan of Carter, and he was a contributor to Carter, and he wanted them to take that out of the movie, all those lines, and they refused to do it. So then eventually they try to make it look like Luke has been alive so that they can save a little bit of face. So while their car lot is crammed with people out here from the interrupting the president's address, I mean, literally this place is packed. All of a sudden you see a car come driving out from behind the lot and everything and shoot across over to where that blue building is over there. There was like a bunch of transformers and everything over there. That's where Luke's car crashes into. And everybody knows now that he's passed away. But his daughter gets really upset at Kurt Russell, who Kurt Russell has started kind of falling for and started dating her throughout the movie, but he's also lying to her through the whole movie. So he ends up getting fired by her, and she makes her own commercial promoting the car lot, and Royal Fuchs across the street hires someone to edit the commercial, or edit it before it goes on the air. And instead of her saying we have all kinds of styles of cars, they edit it to make it sound like she says we have a mile of cars. And so that makes it false advertising. They don't have 250 cars, so they have to either come up with it or she's going to have to give up the car lot. So what ends up happening is that Kurt Russell takes all the money that he had saved to buy his nomination, and he pays for 250 used cars to be brought here by driver's ed students. And they encounter a roadblock. So when we see them showing up here, it's actually, they come up, since this was all an empty field before all this, you actually see them coming from behind here, just 250 cars coming towards us, and drive right in up through the back of the lot. So right about here is where the entrance to New Deal used cars lot would have been, and that's where that big mud puddle is. So when the family comes to buy the car, the kids that were there that were acting all crazy and rowdy were actually the stuntman's kids. And so they hired them to be in the movie, and they're the ones that fall out of the back of the station wagon into the puddle of mud and everything here. But they said that the kid that you see in the movie who's sitting on top of the car and rolls off the car and just acting really hyper, I guess the director told the prop guy, like, hey, give this kid a bunch of chocolate, you know, to make sure that he's got a lot of energy and he'll be crazy for this scene. Well, they filmed this scene for like an hour or two, and the guy just kept giving the kid chocolate. So he was like a spaz by the time they were filming this. But in the end, they end up with 250 used cars on the lot. The judge that is here to determine the outcome is Al Lewis, Grandpa Munster, hanging Judge Harris. And they end up winning. What ends up happening is they're one car short. They're measuring all the cars. They're one car short. And all of a sudden, Garrett Graham comes flying into the lot, like head on right here, parks, smashes into another car. They measure it and they say you're 2 inches short. And then all of a sudden, Jack Warden, playing kind of the evil brother, Royal Fuchs, gets excited and smacks his hand down on his fist down on the car, and all of a sudden the license plate where you would pump the gas flips open, and he goes, "A mile of cars," and they win. So New Deal used car stays here, and Kurt Russell continues to work there. It's such a great movie, man. It really is. Let's go down here. I'll show you the motel that we can see, because there are a couple of shots like after they blow up. See, the second time when they're doing the interrupting Carter's address, they're actually over here at this car lot, and that's where Garrett Graham, playing Jeff, is, well, he looks like kind of like Custer. He ends up shooting and blowing up Royal Fuchs' car. So Roy comes over here, basically would have driven in this way in the dark afterward, and then there was a pathway that came in front of the garage and in front of the office. He comes down that pathway to get Jeff, and when he's doing that, you can see this motel over here. Now, I was hoping to match up the windows and everything, but you can tell now that they've got shrubbery and everything on the other side of this where the parking space is, and so you can't even see it, but that is the same exact motel sign up there. You can see now that they've built like a whole retaining wall over there, but yep, right over here, it's roughly where Jim's giant barn looking garage would have been. And then New Deal would have been right over there. So here's an odd little piece of trivia you might enjoy about used cars. If you watch it closely in the beginning, when Rudy is selling the cars to the driver's ed teacher, two of those cars are the cars from Greece. And you do get the scene where Rudy baits a guy right here. He takes a fishing pole and throws a $10 bill across this road and tries to lure a guy in who's trying to buy a car over here. Which of course his boss, Luke Fuchs, says, "You didn't bait him, did you? How many times have I told you not to bait him?" And Rudy says, "If I can't get him on the lot, I can't sell a car." So the $10 bill that he whips across with a fishing pole hits the guy in the head right here, and then Rudy starts pulling it across this street over here, and the guy almost gets hit by cars chasing after that money. So instead of New Deal used cars across the street, this one's called Ideal Cars, and this would have been Royal Fuchs Auto Emporium. And literally, like right about here is where they would have blown up the car and where they would have been shooting the car with a shotgun. If you haven't seen this, go watch it. I'm not kidding. This is a really, really funny movie. Unbelievably great. There's so many great lines in this movie. One of my favorites actually right at the beginning when Jack Warden, playing Royal Fuchs, is inside of here and they're telling him like that the freeway off-ramp's gonna go right through his lot, and he goes, "Well, what have I been kicking all this money to the mayor for all this time? You know, back in my day when you used to buy a politician, that SOB stayed bought." And as best as I could tell online and by watching the movie, even though it's changed a little bit, this looks like the original structure, the original building that was here during the movie. And that chunk of land right over there all would have been where they set up New Deal used cars, and they said that they built everything there specifically for this. Now Bob Gale said that they went out of their way on certain things in this movie to make the characters personalities come to life, and one of them was they said they made sure that they wanted these guys to litter constantly. Everywhere they went, they were throwing things on the ground. They said it just showed like how selfish and just what kind of guys these guys really were. But poor Bob Gale, he even said, you know, he's like, this movie deserved so much better than it got. He really believed, and Zemeckis as well, that the film's success was sabotaged by the studio unknowingly, but by releasing it the same week as Airplane, it just didn't even have a chance. Like they said, they thought maybe the title didn't work, and it being an R-rated movie released the same week as a family-friendly movie like Airplane. It's unfortunate. It really is a great movie. If you've never seen it, go on Amazon Prime or wherever you get movies and go watch Used Cars. Well, there you have it. The filming location of Robert Zemeckis' Used Cars. Well, my friends, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's vlog on the filming location of 1980s Used Cars. Go watch this movie. You will not be disappointed. Such a well-made movie. It holds strong even to this day. Thank you all for watching from New Deal Used Cars. Have a great night. Goodbye.